Beautiful. Welcome to The Man's Mind, episode 2. Today I have Garth Brewin with me. He is a men's coach who describes himself as have gone to discover the deep depths of the jungle of his mind and coming through with the tools and the awareness to help men through healing and understanding in personal development. He also does, he speaks at different schools and different events, and he has facilitator training. And I'm really, really super excited to hear his story and his perspective on life and how he's helping men. And I can't wait to share. Garth, would you like to say
hello? Hello. Such a pleasure to be here with you and with everyone that's going to be here watching with us. And I'm excited.
I'm so excited. Before we jump into it, I would really like to do a call to action. I would love it if whoever's watching right now would feel into their heart and feel if sharing this video with people on their page or specific men that may have some value from this to raise the awareness of the men's work. A men's work, from what I have discovered through my own work, is really challenging to connect with other people. It's actually quite hard to find on Google, on Facebook, through Instagram pages. And the whole idea of this podcast is to connect men, connect a community, and bring brotherhood and different healers, coaches, mentors to the awareness to sort of add support to this work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tag and share onto my pages so that people can find this podcast. And I'd also like you guys to do that too if that feels good for you, and we can jump straight into it. Right. We'll see how quickly I can do it.
Oh, the technology and the beautiful ways that it makes us. I'm going to share it from your page. That's what I'm going to.
Yeah, you should be able to. I've tagged you down the bottom.
Beautiful.
That should be all updating. And
it truly is the challenge, like you said, to get this work out to men. I know that when I was looking for things years ago, there wasn't anything I could find. And now when I go and search men's work, all I find is men's workwear. And
oh, I know exactly that. I looked up men's coaches, and there's a men's coach handbag or a wallet brand or something, and I couldn't find anything on men's coaches. So one of the more disturbing things was I was looking on Facebook and I was looking for support group. Obviously, no one would add me into a men's support group. But I was looking for different links, and just looking up for men who have been through domestic violence, all you get is women's pages. So there's no real support. And the amount of men that I know that have been through domestic violence and people that I've worked through is it's actually mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Okay, so I think we have
shared to my page. Let's roll. Excited. Awesome. Any of my beautiful friends that are joining right now, you're in for a treat. It's going to be fun.
Okay. Well, how about you tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you to where you are and involved with such a loving heart into doing the work that you're doing. I would love to hear the experience and the story that you have as to what's got you to this point now.
Yeah, beautiful. Obviously, it's going to be a very brief and paraphrased story. To paraphrase it down, I grew up in an amazing childhood. I had phenomenal parents. And still I somehow ended up on drugs, alcohol, affiliated with gangs, fighting. The saying was a fuck or a fight when we went out to town. And I ended up with criminal convictions and just going down this path of depression where I wasn't happy. And even though I had great people around me and I had great support that was really there for me, I just wasn't able to reach out. I wasn't able to bring myself to be vulnerable. I hadn't cried from the age of 12 years old till I was 28, other than when I would feel that I needed to cry when I was breaking up with a girlfriend or something else. I would yawn and it would bring tears to my eyes, and I could act because I loved acting when I was younger. So I would pretend to be crying and pretend to be sad, even though in my heart I didn't feel a thing. And I knew I should be sad, but I couldn't feel it. And so I kept going down this path, trying to find things outside me that would bring me some sense of joy. Drugs, alcohol, having sex, all the rest of it. And just at the age of 19, I got to the point where the story that was running in my head consistently, and one night I was extremely drunk and high on ecstasy, and you'd think that ecstasy would take me up, but instead I was going down. I was sitting at home by myself on the edge of my bed, and I had the thoughts, you're not good enough, nobody loves you, why do you even try? Everyone's better off without you, might as well die, you might as well end it, save them the suffering, save them the burden, nothing's going to change, it's always going to be the same. And I had a razor blade and took it to my wrist, and it was my first moment of awareness where I got slapped in the back of the head by some awareness, whether it was mine, God, or life, or my subconscious mind, whatever it may have been at that time. It whacked me in the back of the head and said, what the fuck are you talking about, Garth? Like, you have a family that loves you, and you have friends around you, and you can make this change. This can change. And I still had the stories running even while that was happening, and it caused me to stop what I was doing. And I knew that I could change it, I just didn't know how. And since then has been this journey of just trying to figure it out. At that time, it was still when YouTube was very early on, and it was when all this information, you couldn't even really search to find it. And so I wanted to go to counseling and stuff like that. So I did some counseling and psychology through the court system, actually, that ordered me to do it. But I was like, yes, I can stop doing the dumb shit that I'm doing. This is going to be great. And I spent 6 months with them. And at the end of the 6 months, they said to me, Garth, from everything you've told us, there's no reason you should be here. And I was like, what I heard was, you're fucked and we can't fix you. And I just went, well, fuck you. Like, there's got to be a way. I'm not going to take pills for the rest of my life. And I am doing the stuff that I'm doing. I'm still doing stupid things. So there must be a reason behind it. It can't just be, oh, this is the way that I am. I've got to find a way. And so still didn't go looking outside myself at books and finding coaches or guides or anyone that could give me an outside perspective, because I was in the system. I thought it was psychology and counselors that was the only way. And it wasn't until I walked the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage trail in Spain, which is 930 kilometers of walking, and I wanted to go find myself. For the first time in my life, I took some time off work and I went to find myself. And I had a house at the time, and I was like, cool, when I can sell the house and I'll be able to use that money that I'd had through the house for 9 years. And I was like, cool, I'll be able to sell the house and have the money to travel for 4 years and go on this adventure. And I hadn't gone to sell it before I left, though. So I went on this journey, took the money that I'd saved, and I had money saved for the mortgage, everything else, and had the most profound experiences walking the Camino, just with the simplicity of walking the way out in nature. And she taught me in the most subtle way that I couldn't understand in my mind, but I knew it to be true. And then while I was in Spain, I ran out of money, and I was like, cool, I'm going to sell my house. Found out that the house was worth $30,000 less than what I paid for it 9 years prior. And so that was the final piece of my sense of worthiness that I still held on my external self, because I was basically, I was homeless in Spain. I had no money. I was begging on the street, finding my way to figure it all out, partially by choice and partially by circumstance. You know, if I'd really wanted to get home, I could have, but I just went, you know what, like, when else am I going to get an opportunity where I'm in another country, I'm deadbeat broke, and I have no idea how the fuck I'm going to get home, but here's an opportunity. And so I went, just carried on going down that path, and I was like, so coming back to the house just completely destroyed me. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I wasn't crying because I couldn't feel the grief. So I was just screaming in the middle. I remember when my dad told me the valuation, and I just lost it in the middle of this town square because I didn't know how to open and feel the grief and feel the loss that I was experiencing. And then I had some other profound moments during my time there. A little spider came down while I was reading a book. It was called The World's Religions, and I was trying to read it, and I couldn't even focus. I was stuck up in my head so much, and I was up in the Sierra Nevada National Park looking out at the most beautiful sunset. And as it was going down, and I sort of looked at it, I was like, I know that's beautiful, but I can't feel it. And then down the spider came, and it just stopped in front of the sunrise. And in that moment, I just became so engrossed in the spider's life that I just entered the present moment and had this experience of Satori, or of this openness to, the oneness that exists. And I had that moment, and then I came back to my mind and went back into this chaos and all this craziness. Went back to New Zealand and realized I didn't want to live in the same way that society has told me I need to live. So it started to break down this idea. But of course, I needed money. So I went back to work, and I was doing an amazing job. I was a skipper of a dinner cruise boat in the Bay of Islands, and had beautiful friends up there going out spearfishing every week, and, you know, going out on the boat and doing all this amazing stuff. And I was constantly in anxiety, nonstop. I'd wake up in the morning, before I even opened my eyes, my heart would be pounding out of my chest, and I would brush my teeth, and I would feel wrong as a human being while I was brushing my teeth. And I just went on like this. I was like, it'll change. I tried taking anti-anxiety pills, made it worse. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. And then it'll pass. A year and a half went by, didn't pass. And externally, I was very good at acting and showing that I was okay. And then it got to the point where I said, no, I have to find something, do something about this. So I decreased my drinking and started meditating again, and started looking for books and resources and finding things outside myself, and things started to change slowly over time. They started to change and shift, and started to open to this idea that I don't know, I can't figure it all out on my own, and I need some guidance and some support. And then since then has just been this magnificent journey of just tearing apart my entire identity and who I thought I was, and sitting with an opening to feeling, which is such a journey, you know, for men in general. And for me, I hadn't experienced emotion, the scale of emotion, because I was afraid to allow it, because I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to sit with it. So I couldn't open to it because I might die, was the feeling that I got from it. So
it's actually amazing that you say that about that severity of the disconnect from emotion, and how the fear of feeling that level of either guilt or shame or grief, and feeling it. And we actually go into that space of, when you do feel like that, you want to die. Like, there's this weird feeling of, if I feel that, I'm going to die because it hurts too much or it's too intense. But we don't realize that it's something that passes. And if it's suppressed, then you have that disconnect. And that was the thing that, with what you've just shared, for me, that pointed out to me the most, was the level of what I would probably say the disconnect from your being to your body with the emotion, and how you weren't feeling those things. Do you know, how did you start to embody more of your emotions so you could feel it?
The biggest thing above all else has been being around people that I've built trust with, that have inspired me by being in their emotion to feel safe enough to come forward and allow mine to come up. And I mean, the big one in that was Tony Robbins. When I was there, and when I went in the crew room and started crewing for Tony Robbins, very tight-knit family, and I got to know these beautiful people. And yeah, the first time I cried was in the Tony Robbins crew room. And the beautiful woman Tracy, she's an older woman, and she's like camp mother, you know, and she could see that there was something not right for me. I had all this emotion there, and I just didn't know how to really bring it. And she was like, "Garth, cry." And I was like, "No, I can't, I'm gonna die." And she's like, "Garth." She grabbed me and she's like, "Cry." And she just pulled me in, and I just burst into tears, and I wept and I wept and I wept, and they sent me out. I spent 2 hours just weeping by the pond, and I was grieving for all the times I hadn't cried, all the times I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And just so it was that process of even getting to that point was just slowly letting more and more of the range of emotion come in. You know, instead of being in that middle place and trying to just be here in the middle, it was allowing a little bit more. And as I allowed a little bit more grief or a little bit more sadness, then a little bit more joy would come, and life would start to become a little more interesting.
And it does. It's like you can't get to this space where you're, I guess, can have time of no mind without going through this little step forward. And recognizing that, I think, from what I see with a lot of my men's clients and women, is the expectation that you should be further than what you are on your journey. And it's like, hang on, wait, where were you? Like, look back where you were 2 months ago and really recognize that. Like, it's a process of layering off that false identity, and it takes time, and you can't get to a space of no mind in the first meditation, and that you can't give up just because of that.
Totally. Yeah, I've found too, very much in my journey, that life will give me these experiences that are just so profound and opening, like the spider. Or last year I had one where I had this week where I was just in this feeling of orgasm. I'd look at everything, I'd be like, oh my God, and I'd just feel all this orgasmic energy running through me for like a whole week. And now I've been on the journey long enough to know that this too shall pass. And it's generally when I get given those beautiful experiences of what's possible, then life's like, all right, come on now, Garth, it's time to do the work. And then it just throws me into the place where I have to do the work. But I appreciate it now. It's like, oh, cool. I get to like sift through the ashes and really dig into what's there that needs to be open to, accepted and allowed within me, and this next stage, so that I can meet that more and more consistently. I actually had a really interesting experience last week I'd love to share, which is about reflection. And someone asked me about methamphetamine, because I used to smoke methamphetamine years ago. And they said, what's the experience like? And because I don't talk about the drugs that often, or it doesn't usually come up that it's purposeful to share. I sat with them and I went, wow. I said, at that time, because I was living at such a low state, it opened me to this feeling. I was just like, wow, I just feel good. I feel okay. Like, I feel like everything's going to work out. And now I live at a higher place than I did when I was high, consistently. And I'm like, my lows are higher than the high that I was experiencing then. And I'm like, wow, that's cool, you know?
And it is. It's amazing. Well, I don't know if I've ever shared this on my public page. So now people are going to know I have also smoked methamphetamine, and I have explained it that at that point in time, it feels like the space of consciousness, but it lacks the fulfillment of love when you're coming into your heart. So it's like you have this level of like space and freedom that the masculine energy wants and desires, but there's not this like fullness of love at the same time. So I think when you start doing the inner work and you start to find these natural highs in just life and connection and gratitude and presence, that you notice that it was only sort of a one-sided thing. And I mean, well, all drugs only have a certain frequency, each of them have a frequency vibration. So if you're vibrating above that frequency, it's like way higher than what anything you could get off a drug high would be.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and you get to choose it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the beautiful part. And the other piece is like, you know, when I take people on a breathwork journey and then they go, wow, and people who have experienced DMT or plant medicines or anything, they go, wow, that's like DMT. And I'm like, yeah, but you just did that yourself with your own body. You had the biggest high of your life. And for me, when I've had my biggest, probably my biggest shifts have come through breath work, because I have to work for it to go there. And so when something uncomfortable comes up, I got to choose to keep going into it. And so because I choose it and because I work for it, because I work to go into that darkness and to go, yes, I'm ready to feel this, I'm ready to open to this. And because I make that decision, it just shifts things at a deeper level, I find. And
it's the choice to go there, though, just in that intention rather than the resistance. And that it does. It's like it magically dissolves away sometimes, and so much faster than what you perceive that it's going to. You're like, oh, right. And that's why it gets more exciting when you have those moments of what you're saying, where you have the highs and then you like get a little bit of a slap from your higher self or the universe. And you're like, okay, time to do some more work. It's met with, oh, okay, yes, wow, thank you for these lessons. Like, thank you, because I know that the more these things come up, the more I can layer off the false identity and self. I would love to hear a bit more about how you use breath work with your clients and how that's been a part of your journey and what that involves with your work.
So maybe I'll start with my own journey first, which is, I mean, I unconsciously, I didn't realize, but doing freediving since I was 14 years old, I was doing breath holds and doing breath work to an extent already. And I was already doing meditation. I just didn't realize I was doing it. So that's been such a beautiful gift with that. But then, of course, I came across Wim Hof, was the first sort of opening to trying this thing called breath work. And I know through yoga and other forms of breath work, they were much softer and more subtle breaths. But this one claimed that I could heal my body and I could get all of the diseases and viruses and everything else out. And I was interested. And one of the biggest draw cards was that I had really poor circulation in my hands and feet. They would go purple when I went for a swim in the pool, for a swim in the ocean, or on a cold morning. I would like feel like arthritis. It was so painful. And so I was like, yeah, let's do this ice stuff and this breath work. And I started going on this journey, and naturally I was taking the steps and building on top of the knowledge that I had each time on different things. And breath work became the obsession for a while. And I started to find Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and about how you can, the power that made the body heals the body, and the meditations and opening up to the quantum realm and the pineal gland, and how you can open it, activate it, and allow yourself through the breath, through movement, to have these altered states of consciousness and be able to enter into these different experiences of the world that we live in. And so I spent a month where I went, all right, I'm dedicating myself to activating my pineal gland. So for 3 hours every day, I would do meditation and breath work. And it was like compounding different meditations, different breath works, and just going with it. And after about 20 days, I had my first vision. And it was extremely clear, more real than anything I'd experienced in my life in front of me. It was the most profound thing. And from that moment, I was like, wow, okay, there's more to this. And the more I learned to surrender into the breath and surrender into the experience, it just started teaching me so much. And I realized that naturally my anxiety was just disappearing so quickly. It was like, it was just going away and going away and going away. And it was because I was opening up to this experience of love that I couldn't experience myself. I couldn't open to that myself. I couldn't tear off the armor and open the doors. And so through the breath work, it had given me this experience of oneness, of openness, of wholeness. And so that was a representation and a bar that was there, or a point that I could reference from to start experiencing more love. And so it was the journey of coming back into anxiety and breathing more, and just this dance. And more I brought it into my day. I'd bring in different breath works throughout the day. So short ones that would just be these short breaths to coming into consciousness. And the more I would become in conscious connection with my breath, then the more love I felt, and the more in the moment that I felt, and the less anxious that I felt. And I just went, this is phenomenal. This has been one of the most phenomenal tools. That and meditation have been my two cornerstone foundations the whole way through. And so now, sharing it with my clients, with people who come and join me on all the experiences, I love taking people on a holotropic journey. So holotropic breathing, which is consistent breathing for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, depending on what we decide to do. And it's all with the frequency of the music that takes them on the journey as well. And I'm also speaking and singing during the experience to take them to the different places, just stimulate different places within them that get to be opened, so they can go, oh, and it opens to these different places within that can be open to that love, that can be open to that wholeness and allowance and acceptance. And of course, I teach them ones they can do every day. They take 12 minutes, ones that take 2 minutes. You know, my practice that I tell everyone is I do the thing called 7 and squeeze, which is taking a breath with each of my energy centers. So the root, then coming up to the sacral, up to the solar plexus, up to the heart, up to the throat, up to the third eye, up to the top, and on the top, up in the crown. On the 7th, so that's the 7th breath. Each one has a breath, and it's bringing and expanding it, and then letting that come back down. The next one, breathing, breathing, breathing. And on the 7th one, I breathe all the way up through all of them, and then I squeeze and draw up from the root, from the earth, from mother, all the way up to the father, and then squeeze it up and out the top. And I'll do, like, it takes 10 seconds. It takes me longer to explain it than it does to do it. And so I'll do 3 sets of that, where I hold and squeeze, and then I let it go, and then I do it again. And I do 3 of them, because it takes me about a minute and a half, if that, to do it. So even my mind can't come up with a good enough excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
Because mine still likes to play with me, and it's like, nah, not today, not today. But I'll do one. So I'm like, 1 set. Come on, get up, do the breath. And I'll do 1 set of it, and then it feels so good that I want to do another and another. And so some days it leads me into doing a 20-minute breath work. Some days that's it, you know, and it's just knowing that I have the practice to keep me consistent and have the discipline with it.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. Like, I've heard of people breathing into each chakra centers. I've done quite a bit of that within my own practices, but I've never actually made the connection with my own intuitive practice. When you were talking about your tool that you sort of teach people, is I have a similar, I guess, tool where you work from the bottom up and flush it through. And I find that flushes the energetic field and gets rid of sort of any stagnant energy or anything that's sort of contracted, and releases all the muscles. And I've just never seen it the same as breath work before. Like, I've never connected the dots. I've always called it energetic clearing, which it's the same practice. It's just different ways of doing it and explaining it. So that was really a really cool connection to see.
There's one other little piece with it too that is a little added extra if people feel called to it, is when I was trying to find my voice, because I'd suppressed my voice. I wouldn't sing in front of anyone ever, not in a shit show in hell. I couldn't express when I first started doing videos for Facebook about what was about me, after having done years of tourism and talking with people. But when it came about my heart and my thing, I did like 300 videos. I still have them all there. I show people sometimes because they're funny as shit, that I never posted, that no one's ever seen, you know? And it was a journey of learning to find my voice. So how this relates to the breathing is that now most mornings, but still not every morning, I used to do it every day, where I would breathe into that bottom chakra. And then when I was letting the out breath, I would try and find the tone of that. So I'd place my hand down over my crotch and I would do like a really low and deep tone. And then I would try and find on the next breath, the next tone up for the sacral. And I can feel the resonance. And at first I couldn't actually reach the root chakra with the vibration. It wouldn't actually reach down there. But as I just brought my attention, my awareness, and my focus to it and did it every day, it started to open. And then I got all these things that I got to see and process through. And then any day that there's a blockage, you can hear it. When I get people to do it and they tell me that they're all sweet, and I'm like, cool, let's go through it. And they'll go through, and then they'll go like the bottom one, and I'm like, there it is, you know? So it's being able to feel it. And the body knows. The body keeps the score. It tells you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Pretty much the exact same. When you know how we were talking about you can't expect people to go into meditation of no mind. So I teach a similar practice in that way of, instead of, you know, the more that you don't want your mind to work, the more it talks, you know, you're telling it to stop instead of observing it. So focusing in unlocking the sound and the vibration, but through humming. So humming into each of those chakra centers. So then it's like this gradual, less freaked out version, but it's the same thing, because we are all so blocked in our throat chakras, isn't it? Which leads me into, you do singing and talking, but you also do sound healing with the digeridoo. Is that correct?
Well,
yeah. With
yeah.
Journey, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's it came about all on its own. Would you like me to share the story of how?
I would love to.
Yeah, cool. So it's so funny. I had a friend call me last year, and they were like, Garth, do you play the didgeridoo? And I was like, no, why? And they were like, oh, I could just see you playing it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Next day, 2 days later, I had another friend call me, and she said, Garth, do you play the didge? And I was like, no, why? And she was like, oh, I just feel like it'd be a good instrument for you. I was like, okay, I'm starting to pay attention. Then 2 days later, I had another friend call me and was like, Garth, do you play the didge? I was like, no, why does everyone keep asking me this? And she said, because I have a didge that I'd like to give you. Oh, have I lost you? You still there? Oh, no. I don't know if you can still hear me, everyone, or if I've gone out, or if Danielle's gone out. I'm not too sure. But if we are here together, then let us sit and enjoy this one. Seems that Danielle's gone out, so we get to all hang out. But yes, the didgeridoo. I'm sure Danielle will be back on in a minute, so I don't want to tell the story and ruin the secrets, because it was a fun journey. But maybe this is a great opportunity to just take a breath, feel into it, to just become one with that breath. Danielle is back with no microphone up.
It's like, where did I go? I was like, beautiful. Did you do a breathwork session while I was disappeared?
We just got to that. I was sitting and wondering if I went out or if you went out, and then you disappeared, and I went, cool.
I went down. So I heard up to about your third friend.
My third friend.
Yes.
So I had the third friend call me, my friend Mariana, and she said, Garth, do you play the didge? And I said, no, why does everyone keep asking me that? And she said, because I have a didgeridoo I want to give you. And I was like, okay, it looks like I'm playing the didgeridoo. And that night, I just went and sat with the didgeridoo and listened to it and just said hello to it. and just sat in meditation with it. I was just like, wow, this is its own being. Like it has its own sound. I don't actually have to play it. It's going to play itself. And then I went and sat down on the beach the next day, and I just sat there for an hour and a half trying to do circular breathing. And it was like, and I'd laugh my ass off, like, and then I'd go back, and then an hour and a half later, I was able to circular breathe and play reasonably consistently. And then ever since, it's just like it wants to play itself. And so it's so funny because I never planned to be doing sound healings or digeridoo or yidaki sessions, but people call me for it. They go, Garth, can you come and do this and do that? And I'm like, wow, like, how cool is this? I never thought I'd be doing this, and I'm learning the guitar as well and the flute, and I just really enjoy it as something to do. And yeah, it's so much fun.
And that has helped you to discover a new sense of yourself, of what you enjoy, because I know there's a lot of men, when I speak to them, one of the first sort of things that I talk to in my sessions is, people will come because they're lacking purpose or fulfillment, or they've had challenging breakups, and they'll say, I'm feeling really lost. And I'm like, well, who are you? Do you know who you are? And most people will identify with their job or their marital status, or whether or not they're a parent. And I said, well, without all of those things, because they're not you, who are you? And that's really challenging, because most people don't do that. They don't just pick up a didgeridoo and play it because they're going to see if it works for them, or they don't go on these seeking expeditions to find who they are. And is that how through experiencing, is that how you've really found who you are?
I think the question of who I am Buddhist monks have sat with that question in meditation for years on end, and I've sat with it a lot too. Who is the I that I speak of? Who is the one who thinks the thoughts and all the things and all the blah, blah, blah? And so the answer is there, but it's not able to be explained through the mind. So the I that watches it all unfold, I figure, because it's like a little bit of a sidetrack in a way, but it makes sense. On the bookshelf, when you're looking at it, you go on this personal development one side, and then the other side is spirituality. One of them's telling you, you are not your ego, and you are something more than that. You're already love. You don't have to worry about it. And the other side says, let's make the best ego you possibly can so you can be happy with it. And I was in conflict for so long around both of those, because I've loved both sides, and I'm like, where's all these contradictions, everything else? And I realized in a new way recently that on the spiritual side, that's my foundation, that I know that I am the awareness that watches, that is the one who's watching the movie of Garth's life unfold in front of me. Therefore, I'm okay. Therefore, if this body dies, if this Garth dies, then I'm going to be fine. And then from that place, it'd be pretty fun to make an ego. Like, it would be pretty cool to become a better speaker. It'd be fun to play the guitar. It'd be fun to do this thing better. It'd be fun to learn how to relate better with women. It'd be fun to relate better with men. It'd be fun. All of these things suddenly become like, oh, that'd be a fun thing to do with this life. There's no real point to it because I'm already okay. But why not have the experience? Why not have the curiosity? And I mean, for me, I've always had an insatiable curiosity, even from a young kid, because, and this stems from my father as an amazing man who does know so much about so many things. And I always used to find it infuriating, because I'd come to him as a little boy, and as a teenager, I'd come to him with these new things that I'd started doing. I'd be like, Dad, I've just found out about this thing. And then his way of connecting would be, oh yeah, and then this happens and that happens, right? And I'd be like, oh, he knows more than I do. He doesn't want to know. That was my representation of it. And so the beauty of that is it meant that I was always trying to find something that would come to him that he didn't know about. And it turned me into a dabbler. So I would dabble in this and dabble in that and try this and try that, but never really go deeper than it. And it eventually got to the point where I was like, screw it, I'm choosing a direction for my life, and I wanted to become a captain. And I was like, my dad doesn't know like all the things there are to know about that. And even if he does know more than me, whatever, he probably does anyway, but I'm just going to do it. And then after years of being a captain, he's like, now he's got his boat and he calls me up and he's like, hey, I'm doing some fiberglassing. What do you think about da-da-da? Or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Do you think this? Do you think that? And I remember the first time he asked me a question about something, he wanted my wisdom or my understanding of something to do with boats, was the moment that I felt a shift into an equality between him and I, the shift into becoming more of a man. I wouldn't say that was the moment that I became a man, but it was feeling like, oh, it changed some things here. And so that insatiable curiosity has just led me in this path of doing what I do today, because I get obsessive and I want to learn. And I think one big thing, have you seen any of the stuff that I do with the rope dart, the fire spinning toy?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch.
The funniest thing, right? That started because I saw this dude, Mink. He's a friend's friend who just got back from Thailand. He's been doing it professionally for like 3 years. And I saw him practicing with the silk one, not even on fire. And I was just watching and I was like, man, that looks hard. And I was like, I want to practice that I can do for 10 minutes a day, every day consistently, and see how good I get in a year. That has no point to it. I don't want to point to it. It's not trying to get me anywhere in life. It's not trying to do anything. I just want something. And so I picked that up. And for 10 minutes a day, every day, sometimes more, sometimes I didn't do it, but always on an average, it's sort of 10 minutes a day. And it took me a year before I really got it, because it was such a complex thing to understand. And then after a year, though, I went to do this thing and I messed it up, and then I caught it automatically and I made this new trick, and I was like, oh, I get it now. This is awesome. And now it's so funny because it's always been that for me. It's only for fun. It's not for anyone else but me. I just enjoy it. Each day when I pick it up, I mean, I don't pick it up every day anymore, but when I was picking it up every day and journeying the masculine and feminine, it became a journey of that for me. Because when I was too much in this masculine place of directness, get stuff done, do this, do that, then the rope dart would be like really sharp and it would mess it up. It didn't have flow to it. And then when I was too far in my feminine side, it would be too soft and too dancey. And with the rope dart, I couldn't really do that while I was learning. And so I had to learn how to bring them both together. And it taught me the embodiment without thought of the masculine and feminine within me. And it also became a journey that my spirit, my soul is fire. And when my fire is on the end of a rope, if I'm present with my fire, with my spirit, and I pay attention and I focus on it and I give it loving attention and dance with it, then we can create magnificence and magic. When I'm not paying attention and I'm not present, I'm in my head, then that fire is going to burn me. And it has. When I'm not present, when I'm thinking about the people watching, when I'm thinking about something outside of myself, then I mess it all up. But when I lift that fire up and I say, it's you and me, baby, and I go and step in there and I just have fun and just enjoy it. And now I get all these things like, man, you're amazing at this thing. And I'm like, I'm just doing the thing that I do. Like, it's fun. Like, I really enjoy it. So
that's a super beautiful way of explaining how you were feeling the masculine and feminine and how you noticed in different mindsets what was playing out for you. What's been one of the more challenging what's been one of the more challenging experiences in your life of embodying more that feminine energy? Because, you know, the emotional side, obviously, feeling grief and feeling the pain that we've talked about is more your feminine emotional flow. But is there a specific experience that you've gone through that's been really challenging that recently has given you a lot of awareness to help men to feel more comfortable in that space?
yeah, definitely. What would be a great one? Yes, starting men's work. God, you know, going from Tony Robbins and personal development and, you know, going through the quote unquote conscious community and doing cacao ceremonies, ecstatic dance and these things, but then specifically going in to do men's work. it was just the whole world shifted, you know, because I'd always had my closer friends, and most of the time had been women, the people that I'd spend time with, and they were just great friends. And I knew that meeting the intimacy with men, or being sitting in a place and being vulnerable in front of them, scared the shit out of me. And so going and sitting in circle with men in silence and being witnessed and heard in my expression, it took me time to build the trust and the safety to allow my emotion to come forward. But man, when I've been held by a brother that I trust and that I love, you know, sharing about, I mean, this is a whole nother story, but I had the woman of my dreams that I coveted for 7 years of my life, and I had manifested her in my life in the most magnificent way. It's an amazing story, but it's long, and it's probably not the time for it. But it was a magnificent thing that I had this woman in my life, and I had put her on a pedestal, and I went into pleaser mode once again. I'm trying to run men's work, and I'm like, oh, who the hell am I? I can't even make this work. Why would I be leading men? And like having to sit with the emotions of, holy shit, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I understand it all in my head, but the actions that are in front of me are not showing the representation of that. Like, this woman's not melting into a soft gooey ball like I've been told these actions would do. She's fucking ripping the shit out of me, and I'm cowering in the corner almost, you know, cowering in my heart and hiding my heart. And then so to express that with a beautiful brother of mine, Nathan Miola, and him calling me forward into expression and into the truth and into what was there deeper down for me. Yeah, it's powerful.
So powerful. There's a couple of things there that I'd love to touch on around. Well, first, what was that deeper emotion for you about why you were carrying? Where does that come from?
Shame. Yeah, the deeper emotion was the shame that I wasn't able to be the good guy, to be the man that would be perfect for someone else, you know. And unworthiness was another part. I felt unworthy that someone would love me just as I am, and that I had to be something for them, that I had to try and be something else. And then the other deeper emotion with it was the realization that me and her, like, she wasn't my dream relationship. She may have been my dream woman. This idea of this woman that I thought that I wanted, I had the list, and it was this, I had the idea of what this would create. And so I had the list, I got the woman, I got exactly what I asked for. And it wasn't what I really needed. Well, it was what I needed at the time for me to grow, for sure, but it wasn't what I need in order to have a deep and meaningful relationship. So I realized at that time that was one of the biggest awakenings of my life, because I really had to look at myself and look at the ways that I had manipulated, look at the ways that I had, me being a pleaser and being a nice guy was this manipulative side of myself that was actually in the darkness, and I wasn't bringing to light, and I wasn't willing to face, and I was trying to hide behind the mask of I'm such a good guy. And so, yeah, I realized all in a moment that I have no idea, and I'm such an idiot as this humanness. Like, who the fuck am I to think that I know what I want or know what I need? You know? And so now, like, for relationship, it's just, I have one romance, one love of my life, and that is my heart and love itself. You know, and if I open to love, then if I'm open to love, it doesn't matter where I point my heart, it's pointing love and the wholeness of it. And I've been finding more and more that the truth of that holds true, where someone could be screaming at my face, calling me the biggest piece of shit under the sun. And if I'm in love and I'm open to accepting all parts of myself, the dark sides and the light, and I'm able to reflect and see, yeah, these parts, yeah, I can see some of the truth in some of these. And in my actions, though, sometimes it's like, no, I hear that this is your representation of that. And I'm open to it. Like, please bring whatever you need to express. And then it's it. We can talk. And I'm not getting triggered by everything. And I'm not going down every little thing and justifying myself when especially in a relationship with a man and a woman, and there's a masculine and feminine dynamic. And if the man or myself and my own journey has been when I've been in my little boy and I want to be a good boy, and then she tells me that I did something wrong, then I try to justify myself and I try and say, no, but what about the other times when I did this and this and this, rather than just being in presence and just being okay with who I am and being okay with her expressing and being okay with going, awesome, like, yeah, if there's things there for me, I'll hear them. And in other parts, some I've learned more and more too, to stay in my center, which means that I know myself deep enough where I can say, I love that. I've communicated to you that this is the way that I am in the past, and I'm not going to change this. I love this about me, and this is a part of me, and I'm going to be this. And I'm okay if you don't stay. I'm okay if you leave. I'm okay if whatever. All of you's welcome. Bring it all. But this is true for me, and I'm going to live this. And then that's when there's the opportunity for a deeper conversation and deeper communication. Yeah.
It's definitely when you learn to sit with yourself enough and you drop that vulnerability to receive and not project it back and not shut off in that defensive protection mode, that you learn to receive, but trust yourself and trust who you are and know who you are. Because I think sometimes in romantic relationships between the divine masculine and feminine is that when you have this, I guess romantic love is manufactured by the mind anyway, isn't it? So it's like what you're saying, you just got to be more and more in actual love and open to receiving love in all of its entirety. But when you have this narrative story, like what you were sharing before around your perfect dream girl, and you hold on to that story, so then when anything penetrates it, like it's going to break away that illusion, then you'll project anything outwardly so that you don't have to see that. And what I hear from you is like the sitting in, if you know yourself enough, then you know that that's not going to completely destroy your reality. You'll be okay. Rather than having that attachment to the past programs and the codependency and I'm not good enough and that old story. Am I making sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's and I think to add on to what you're saying there, it's you're gonna have to look at it at some stage. All these dark places that exist in there at the shadow side, because they exist whether you like it or not. And if you don't know they exist, then watch out, because you're gonna get smacked real hard one day. And first comes the tickle of the feather, then comes the slap across the face, and then comes the truck. Learn to feel the tickle, because I've had a few trucks and they hurt. But it's that thing of choosing to go into, like for me, it was choosing to go into that place after that relationship. I was like, and she'd said things to me that I hadn't looked at in myself, so I didn't know if I was that or not. And one of the big ones was she was telling me that I was being a narcissist and full-on narcissist. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go look at, like, of course I'll look at this. Like, I'm so open to looking at things within me. You know, I want to understand, I want to see it. And when I went really deep and I started to look at what was really going on inside me and what my actions were, my intentions, and then I looked into narcissism. What is narcissism? What does it look like? Oh, gaslighting. What's this? Finding out all these pieces. And as I found and I looked into it, I realized how much our society is based on narcissism, and like in a business, you know, the corporate structure, if you love yourself and you boost yourself up and push everyone down, they'll put you at the top of the food chain, you know. And it happens everywhere in our society. And what I realized though is that I had about 20% narcissistic behavior around about that was showing up, you know. But I did realize as I started to understand it all that there was someone else that was speaking to me from this place with narcissistic tendencies. And I went, what a gift. What a gift. And it allowed me to really become true, deeper in myself. And I got to start this journey of decreasing that 20% down and down. So that was beautiful. And I've been able to discern a lot more with those people that come into my life. And I don't believe that there are narcissists. I believe there are narcissistic tendencies that people may display at times as a coping mechanism for whatever it is they're trying not to feel or meet within themselves. And so
I definitely have a similar, pretty much the same point of view on that, is that I always explain that the narcissist is the ego and the sort of the protection mechanism. And it just depends on our ego development and how evolved we are within our own consciousness to how much narcissistic tendencies we have to protect us from those emotions and feelings. So people with those sort of more high range personality disorders tend to have like a very strong disassociation for their emotions, and it's just far too challenging to do what we're talking about and have that level of self-awareness of, okay, I'm hearing you, you're saying that I'm manipulating you, you're saying I'm gaslighting you, you're saying that I'm not listening, so I'm going to sit with that and feel what parts of that are true for me and really like sit in it. And I've done so much of that in my own relationships of trying to come into this level of vulnerability and receiving. But then I found, similar to what I was actually taking a lot of the projections on. And I was like, I don't believe that I'm doing that. Like, I've worked on myself so much in communication. But it was still this level of not having trust within myself. And because there's unconscious programs running, then it was like I would just go, okay, well, maybe that's true. And then I would overanalyze something that somebody had said until I had gone through enough pain, you know, the Mack truck sort of thing, until I was like, hang on, I know myself and I can hear you and I respect how you're feeling and I respect where you're coming from and I can hold space for you, but I'm really actually not doing that. There's portions of it, of course. Like I found that for me, and I see with a lot of people, like what you said, when you've been projected on, being told that you're narcissistic, is when you look at those things, and a lot of people that are quite self-aware, they're like often go, maybe I am the narcissist. Like most people will go, maybe I am. I have some of those traits. But when you look at it in the percentage, it's also like, maybe you don't manipulate, but you manipulate yourself. Like, how much did you manipulate and gaslight yourself in that relationship by hearing exactly that situation of like not being enough because of the story you created, that it's like, well, I'm just going to manipulate and gaslight and emotionally abuse myself by taking on all of this until you I guess, allow yourself to see the truth, and with no judgment, really.
Totally. And that's it. Like, for me, it's been going, and this is when I talk about the descent work or the darkness going into the shadow, is being able to look at, see, own those parts of myself and go like, yeah, you were being a manipulative prick. Your energy and your words, we're all trying to get something from this person and you weren't thinking about them. You were being a selfish prick. And then by owning that, then I can choose it or not choose it in the future. But if I don't ever own it, I can't not choose it because I'm not conscious of it. I'm saying, no, I don't do that. So I keep doing it because I'm like, oh no, that's not wrong. That's not bad. That's okay. Rather than looking at it and going, oh yeah, I can see how that's actually trying to get this from them, and I'm actually trying to do this thing over here, and yeah, I actually don't want to do that anymore. And I've found very much that now, because of meeting those parts of myself, it's like I used to go and sit for 2 weeks. Someone would ask, someone would ask me a question, a partner would ask me a question, or anyone. If I hadn't met that part of myself, I'd be like, all right, I need to go in the cave and sit with this and feel into it. And I learned, like, this is very much, I found in my process as I opened to more of my masculinity too, was to like not feel the need to have the conversation right then and there and try and unfold the whole thing, because it always went sour. Like it didn't work. I'd go and try and get into the feminine communication and build it together. But I learned that I needed to go, actually, I thank you for the question. I need the space. I'm going to go and sit in the cave, and I will bring this back to you. I promise. I'm going to get the treasure and I'll bring it back to you. And sometimes it might be days or weeks. And at the beginning, it was, weeks and weeks. And then I would come back and I'll be like, oh, this is the treasure that I found. And then I would get another question about that piece. And I'm like, all right, I need to go back in the cave. But then as I did that more and more, I was willing to sit in the deeper, darker places of the caves and sit in the discomfort and feel it and meet those parts of myself. Then the pathways became easier and easier. And I was able to go deeper and deeper. And then it's like now I'm very conscious about the words that I use and the intention behind each thing. And I use words, I think they're so important that I use them specifically. And so when someone says to me, you said this, I go, no, that's not how I speak. And I know how I speak because I'm very conscious of it. I know that there's always adjustments, but I know how I speak at this current time, and that is not it. It's close, but it's a whole different intention. What you heard and what I said are totally different things. And so, yeah,
And
it's coming to that deeper place.
yeah, and that's that being impeccable with your word, because the words that we speak creates the vibration not only in our external world, but obviously in our own bodies. And so the way we're speaking and the way that we're talking to ourselves in our mind will shift our frequency. So slowing down and having that time to actually respond rather than react, especially in triggering romantic relationships, so that you can slow down and look at those shadow parts. I've been a little bit obsessed with shadow work a lot lately, and from this more, I guess what you're saying about the dark masculinity side, this kind of more like the sadistic kind of like really pleasure out of pain stuff. Have you spent much time looking at the really sort of deep buried things that you get this pleasure out of the pain, from these subconscious programs? All right, I'll give you, for example, with me, I have the healer pattern, or I had the healer pattern, and I've healed my own, putting everyone before me. Hopefully, I'm sure there's more layers of it. But what would happen at the end when I sort of got to this point where I was like giving myself up again and abandoning myself for another person, and then I would come back into myself, I would be like, okay, this is just not working. And I would want to run away because I've avoided abandonment issues most of my life. So it was like, if I run away, then no one can abandon me. But when that happened, and when I got to that point, there was this really deep, dark, secret shadow side of me that was loved getting to that point of, this person can't meet my expectations. This person can't match me energetically. So therefore I'm more superior and I'm better than them. And then they can pine over me afterwards. And that was like really, there's way more levels of that, but that was like really uncomfortable for me to sit with, of like, there was this subconscious part of me that loved leaving someone and having them being heartbroken, because it gave me this sense of worth. Have you had any really uncomfortable sort of like deep shadowy parts that you've unraveled within yourself?
Totally. One of them is around the intelligence, and for me, always wanting to have that intelligence and that understanding of something beyond my dad, Therefore, when I would have that over someone else, or I would be in a higher position than somebody else, I would have this, even though I wouldn't express it necessarily externally, I would have this sense of superiority. Like even as a captain, inside myself, I had this better than feeling in me. And even though I brought my crew to being as equal human beings with me, inside me, I had this deeper part of knowing that I was better, knowing that I'd put more effort in, knowing that I had, you know, outdone these other people around me. And it really came clear to me when when I found myself comparing myself to Tony Robbins and how insignificant I felt in my journey comparatively to him. And I was like, what's sitting there for me around this? And I was like, oh, it's because I want to be superior to others. So how could I really follow someone else that I see as superior to me in this particular field in this way, you know? And it was a beautiful catalyst for me to let go and to sit in like, oh, I get to be my own journey. I get to like live it in this way, and it doesn't have to be like anyone else's. And everyone's doing something magnificent in their own way, and all that unfolded from it. But it was this thing of, oh, I'm trying to be better than others. I'm trying to be better than someone else, and I love it when I am. Like when I used to race BMX when I was younger, I was number 8 in New Zealand when I finished at 17. But I would love to win, but I wouldn't like go, oh, look at me when I win, because if I didn't win, then I'd be all good. But if I did win, I'd be like, yeah, look at how much better I am. Or like poker, when I'd play poker with people, and I used to be pretty good at poker, and when I would be playing the whole game, and it's a big game of manipulation, you know, and setting the whole game up in order to have people thinking that I'm thinking certain things and doing certain actions. And then I would just know within myself that I had them all played in the palm of my hand. And then I would flip the whole thing and take everyone's chips in half an hour, and people would lose their shit at me, you know? And I'd have this deep thing of like, yeah, I'm fucking better than you. I saw more than you. You didn't know. Ha ha.
Yeah. But when you see that, and it's that awareness of actually recognizing it, really owning it, that then you have choice. And then if you don't, basically, if you choose that old behavior, I've had to come to see like it's choosing ego, which is okay if you don't judge it, I guess. But it's not fulfilling. Like, it's like, why would I want to choose that? Because one, it's kind of hurtful in different ways, depending on the situation. But like, it's not actually coming from a space of love and consciousness. So as soon as you see it, it's like, well, that doesn't actually bring me any joy. Like, it doesn't actually bring me any fulfillment or connection to have that. It's like, I would much rather choose to go into maybe feeling more of an equal, or discovering my own journey, or picking a relationship where I feel more like I'm on a balanced playing field, so that I go into the real stuff that I have to go through, you know, because if we don't, then we're not going to go through those triggers of evolving into the next levels. I know that we've been chatting for a while, so I don't want to hold you up. One of the things I did want to ask though was, what is masculinity for the men that you work with mean to you? Like, being a masculine man or an embodied man, what is that, if you were to describe that to men watching this, or the divine masculine, how would you describe that idea for them, so that they've got a bit more of an understanding of what this work kind of, where it gets you to, and how society is conditioned such a damaging idea of what it is to be a man?
I think that's quite simply the answer. It's just presence. And that's it in its simple form, but I believe that simplicity comes on the other side of complexity, and that we need the complexity in order to figure it out, get in this, let go of this, and go through it all to be able to navigate through the jungle of this to get down into that pool of wisdom in the heart. And so for me, the things that represent masculinity the most to me is dedication, like seeing men when they've got that singular focus, and when they turn that focus inward and they put that dedication, that drive, that passion, because men have more passion than they realize a lot of the time, because they're showing up to work every day. They're going to do a job that they hate to provide for family or themselves or whoever it may be and make this money to put food on the table and everything else. And they're like, oh, I'm not passionate. And it's like, so you get up every day and you go to work because you're not passionate. And they're like, yeah, I'm not passionate. Well, what are you passionate about that makes you go to work? Well, I'm passionate about I love my family. Well, so you're passionate about your family. So there is passion there. It's deeper down. And I think for me, it's helping men realize that when you take the light and the shadow, and to me, it's the immature sides, the shadow aspects, and bringing that into the passive and the active, and then bringing that into a combined place where there's the acceptance of both and realizing the completeness of it, then that can create those more mature states. And that comes from everything, from intellect as a value. You know, intelligence is a great thing to have as a value. I value intellect, but it has a shadow side too, which is like what I shared before. You know, it's having that superiority. And so, yeah, what we've been told throughout society. I mean, I know for me growing up, I was extremely confused. And I'm just going to share this piece because I think it's so valuable to understand. It gives a context more to what's here now and maybe brings some awareness for men. Is that my parents brought me up with great values around monogamy and women and love and respect. And then when I would hear my dad with his mates and they'd be talking about chicks and, oh, she's fucking sexy and I love to stick one up her and all these fucking things. And even though a lot of it was joking, as a boy, I saw a man, my father, and the other men that he loved and respected speaking in a certain way and acting in a certain way. And therefore, I had this conflict within me about, well, which way am I supposed to be? So I would have these women and I would meet women. And I started pretty early in my sexual endeavors as a young man. And I would have all this love and respect for this woman in front of me. And then when I would talk to the guys about it, I would defile her in words, even though I hadn't been like that in the moment, because I thought that's how you spoke with men. And so the journey of having only those two sort of representations, the pleaser or the angry man, I've had to break down that whole model and come just with my own journey and realizing deeper within, once I started to cut through all the darkness and the shadow and recognize it and see it, then the natural state of my manhood just started to come, you know. And I think because there's such a vast array and a menu and a buffet of things that we can choose from, to define it in such a small way would be a disservice. But it's about going on the journey to open to presence, to open to coming back to the moment, to being able to hold that center. I mean, if you get triggered as a man by a woman that's expressing her emotions and she's just expressing what's there for her, and you justify and you try and put it back on her or blame someone else or blame the fucking dog or whatever it may be, then you're not in presence, you're not in your center, and you need to go on the inward journey and look inside. Simple as that, you know. And as you do that, if you can hold that presence and be with it and not feel like you're suppressing, it's not about suppressing the emotion, it's about feeling it fully. And so, yeah, being able to open the heart, feel emotion, be centered in that emotion, speak from that place of this is where I am in this moment. To me, that's pretty much a simple definition of being a man or being a human.
Yeah, definitely. I know that for a lot of men, they get they're very confused by that feminine energy, and I know that they think that, you know, a lot of men think they want their only need, or a lot of society's men, in Western culture at least, think that their only need is to be the security or the provider, and that's safety. And when you look at the divine feminine energy, what the divine feminine really wants is that presence, and that gives them the safety and the security and the presence for them to go through everything without the fear of abandonment. And the only way that you can do that is to really like come into your heart and feel it, because otherwise you're always going to be thinking that what she's going through is a reflection of you, which, I mean, really, I guess it is when we get into mirror work, depending on your reaction. But just to be that stable, like that consistent consciousness is what that divine feminine wants to move through, because they move through their stuff so quick. It's just that they don't need to really be fixed or always trying to like understand it. You probably won't ever understand the feminine energy. It moves too fast. All right, what I've seen on your Facebook and Instagram that you are making a change with some of your work. So I would love to hear a little bit about that and what work you have coming up, so that the people watching can reach out to you if it resonates. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that if you have the time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's been a big shift, and letting go of all the retreats, the clients, everything else, to just take a step back and to end it fully within myself so that something new can form. And yeah, what's come through now is magic. Next weekend, not this coming weekend, the weekend after, we have the Wild Way Home, which is taking a group of people out into the wild, and we're having a fasting vision quest for 2.5 days. And it's really about, like, all I'm doing is facilitating people's journey into their natural state of being by being in nature and being able to shift through all those things that come up. Because when there's no distractions, especially food, there's nothing that we can use to escape ourselves, and we sit with it and be with it and be with nature. And she has this way of drawing it all up, and then having the safe space to be able to express and share what's there, the thoughts about others in the space and all those things, so that we can become more whole, be witnessed in our wholeness and loved in our wholeness, and therefore learn to love ourselves even deeper. And then I'm actually just launching it tomorrow. So this is the first time it's being shared publicly live. I am running a 12-month men's mentorship program, and it's a journey back to the heart and journey into the wild man. It's called the Wild Man's Way, and it's about finding that wild man that's been caged in there, that we've locked up because we're afraid of what he's going to do when he comes out, but having a space where you can learn how to bring him out in a way that brings that wildness. And it's going to be 4 retreats or 4 experiences and journeys over a year, where the first one will be going out bush and learning primal living and survival skills, and both externally and internally. And then the second one's going to be Bush Tucker, where we have an Indigenous bloke who's going to take us out on country and teach us about the food that you can eat, can't eat, medicines. And then we're going to learn about the thoughts and emotions that you can eat, can't eat, that are fucking dumb to eat, and then the medicines for those. And then the third one's going to be freediving and ocean foraging, which I'll be running, and teaching people how to really come in tune with their body, with their breath, and be blown away by the capacity that it has to be able to navigate the depths of emotion, the depths of life. And then the fourth one is going to be, I'm going to teach the guys how to sail, and we're going to sail out to an island, and then it's going to be a castaway experience where we won't take anything with us except the skills, the tools, and the men that we've built relationships and built up over this year, and then be able to live on that land and live off the land, in the land, with the land for 4 days and nights. And then obviously during the year we have integration, we have the other side of the journey, which is that inward space and deepening and deepening and deepening over the year, so the men can stand there and during that 4 days they can go into it with confidence, knowing, oh yeah, we got this easy. And they live it, they do it, they be it, they interact with each other in it and go, oh yeah, I have changed. Wow, I can provide for my family, I can provide for myself in every way, shape and form. So that's the two main things that are coming up. And then the facilitator training, I haven't put dates on yet, but the facilitator training is about how to facilitate in general, because there's people teaching different modalities. And what I see as a common deficit is the mechanics and the magic to the people interaction, to creating the space for these people in a healthy, safe way, that people are really able to be held through the process, and that it's not about the facilitator, it's about the people that are there and what's going to be best for them. So yeah, I'm excited for when that one comes up.
That's awesome. That's absolutely beautiful. And I can feel the energy of that. And I'm like, kind of like, can you run one of those for women? And I'm like, hang on, wait, men's work. That's right. That's what we're.
Well, although the Wild Way next weekend is men and women together.
And actually, quickly, how do you find, see, for me, on my own healing journey, I've found some of the most amazing healing within myself has been when a man has been able to be present with me, and where I've been able to go into that real vulnerability of pain and grief or hurt. For me, that just broke down that it was just super healing. Like, I'd never had any through the work that I've done, having a man like literally just validate my emotion. I think it was one of the first times that I never had a man validate my emotion and not have it projected back or to actually be heard. And I found that was like one of the most healing things for me ever. And I've done a lot of healings through men and through understanding men, so that I could understand myself better and so I could help heal my own pains. Do you find that when the dynamic, how is the dynamic between men and women in those groups that you're running?
It's triggering as shit for everyone, in the sense of, yeah, everyone's stuff's coming up and it's going, shit, am I going to be welcome? Am I going to be able to be received in this? Can I hold a woman is a big one that a man has. Like, can I be with what I'm going through and also be with her and be held by her and have all of that happening in the same circumstance? I mean, yeah, same thing in my journey, where being held by the feminine and learning to really allow myself to be fully held, while knowing that I've also got me, I've got myself, and that means that I can fully allow myself to surrender to this and let go. But yeah, it does very much bring up a whole different part of it. I believe in men's work, women's work, and together work, and I believe it needs to be in that, well, not in that order, like it can be women, that men's or whatever, but it's the separate and then together, because we got to do the work within ourselves, then come together, and then take our space, and then come together. You know, there's stuff that I've realized now. I still understand why they had men's work and women's work in the tribes and everything else, because there are these differences in our biology and our way of being that just, I'm like, the more I've learned about it and been able to feel it in me to be just so true, I'm like, oh, so I call my men now instead of calling my woman. You know, like I call them in and I'm like, yes, I'm going through this. And then they know how to hold me through it in this way that I need to be held. And it doesn't have to be explained. They just get it. It's beautiful. So, yeah. And then being able to bring that together as well.
I think that helps men too, if you've got that network of brothers that you can have as support that understand you and get you and that you've worked with, to maybe not go into some of those unconscious patterns of getting into a relationship just because you want someone to nurture you or understand you or help you heal. And it can bring you back into, I can get support elsewhere. rather than that kind of mother wounding.
When a piece on that is like, a boy wants a mother, a man wants a partner, and if a boy, men now think that it's good to let the woman guide you and lead you in your journey of healing. But what I've found and seen at representation so many times is that she wants you to know that you're going to do it for yourself, with yourself, and that she's not going to be responsible for this whole journey with you. She'll bring it to you, but then go take it to the man and then like journey it together, and then come back with the treasure, and she'll be like, oh, you're my hero. And it's beautiful, that, and it's that thing of like, oh, it feels so good coming back. And my experience of going, hearing it and going, I want to bring you the treasure, I'll bring it back to you. And then I'll go away, sit in the cave, call a brother, feel the thing, go through it all. And then I come back and I'm like, this is where I was, this is where I went on, and this is where I am. And like just the feeling of openness to that, like, I trust you to go and do the work, like, thank you. And you didn't even bring it to me, and even though it pissed me off that you didn't talk to me about it, the fact you went away and did it actually means more to me, because I trust that you're doing the work without me being on your shoulder all the time.
Exactly. Beautiful. All right, before we finish up, where can people find you, Garth, if they want to get involved in some of the amazing work that you're
doing? Amazing. So first of all is the voyagemen.com.au website, and just go to store, and then you'll find the upcoming events on there. An easy way to find it is if you go to garth.brewin on Instagram. I'm the only one, so you'll be able to find me, and then just click the link tree link, which will have all the stuff there as well. And then the other is Garth Brewin on Facebook, or I think it's changed to the Wild Way Garth Brewin, which is the business page as well.
Beautiful. I will copy those links and put them in the comments of the live. And I think I've already put your website on there, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy, your vulnerability, and coming into this space with me. I'm super grateful, and I'm sure the people watching will have got a lot of value out of you sharing today.
Thank you so much. It's been a blessing and an honor to be in this time with you in this space, and with all of you who are watching. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. And yeah, just so much love.
Love. Bye.
Bye.